Hi everyone, Razvan here. I wanted to make this video to talk a bit more about my art. Most of you have seen me post for the few years or so all sorts of geometric abstract patterns online. Some black and white, some are kaleidoscope, some are a bit more abstract, some more are non-objective, some of them are, but essentially these kind of abstract patterns that I've been posting, and I wanted to give a little bit more context, what inspires me to create such things and why am I doing it, and what's the underlying reasoning of me creating such patterns. And I wanted to go back into the beginning and talk about how all indigenous cultures all over the world, from North America to China to Australia to everywhere else in the world, if you look at the so-called primitive cultures, you'll see that they are completely overtaken by these patterns, and they're obsessed with these patterns. And you can find them everywhere, from clothes to objects, to all sorts of cult objects being found through archaeology and whatnot. You'll see these patterns emerge over and over and over again. And why were these so-called tribal or so-called primitive people obsessed with these patterns? And if you look at the writing of more modern psychologists such as Carl Jung, he talks about these symbols, these patterns coming from the collective unconscious through our subconscious and becoming conscious, and influencing our reality in our lives. And what do they mean? Why are people from all over the cultures obsessed by these patterns? Do these patterns really mean anything? And at the same time, you'll notice that nature in itself is also obsessed by patterns. Why? What does make the spider, let's say for example, what does it make him want to create his spider web in such a way that it forms a pattern? Or the birds, or so many other animals, or beetles, or ants, or whatnot. All these animals are and insects and plants, and we ourselves, humans, are obsessed by these patterns, and these patterns seem to be going to the beginning of nature, of creation, and we see that reality is based on these patterns and mathematics. And I wanted to bring over here another author I've encountered, and this is a great book that I really highly recommend. It's called I'm a Strange Loop by Douglas Hofstadter. And in this book, the Hofstadter talks about the concept of I being as a strange loop. Not only that, but most of humankind is also connected in this loop. And it's very Avatar-like. I'm sure you're aware of the Avatar, and humanity being connected, and all nature and creation being connected through these patterns. And there is, of course, as Hofstadter proved mathematical, there is indeed a absolutely proof that this is true. From the opening of the book, Hofstadter says that can a self, a soul, a consciousness, an I, the idea of self, I, arise out of mere matter? If it cannot, then how can you or I be here? If this can, then how can we understand this baffling emergence of the notion of the I? Deep down, the human brain is a chaotic, seething soup of particles. On a higher level, it is a jungle of neurons, and on a yet higher level, it is a network of abstraction that we call symbols. The most central and complex symbol in your brain or mine is the one we both call I. An I is a strange loop in the brain where symbolic and physical levels feed back into each other and flip causality upside down, with symbols seeming to have free will and to have gained the paradoxical ability to push particles around rather than the reverse. For each human being, this I seems to be the realest thing in the world, but how can such a mysterious abstraction be real? Or is it our I merely a convenient fiction? How do we mirror other beings inside our mind? Can many strange loops or different strengths inhabit one brain? If so, then a hollow tenet of our culture, then one human brain houses one human soul. It is an illusion. So he's tackling this idea, and I really recommend this book. I Am a Strange Loop, as well as his other book, where he draws parallels between the mathematician Gödel, the Escher, Maurice Escher, the designer who created these abstract patterns, and the musician Bach, the composer Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach. And he draws interesting parallel of mathematics and the idea of patterns. And from the chapter 18, I wanted to read this here from chapter 18 in his book, where he talks about human identity, the blurry glow of human identity. I host and I am hosted by others, meaning that this concept of me, I live in other people, as well as other people live inside me, just by sharing information as pure information. As you see me speaking to you right here, I will occupy a part of your brain. Of course, after everyone is dead, and after this idea of continuity goes in so far as existence keeps going on, but we do know that this information is registered by reality, by our brains. So from chapter 18, what Hofstadter says: among the belief most universally shared by humanity is the idea one body, one person, or equivalently, one brain, one soul. I will call this idea the caged bird metaphor, the cage being, of course, the cranium, and the bird being the soul. Such an image is so self-evident, so tacitly built into the way we all think about ourselves, that to utter it explicitly would sound as pointless as saying one circle, one center, or one finger, one fingernail. To question it would be to risk giving the impression that you had more than one bat in your belfry. And yet doing precisely the latter has been the purpose of the past few chapters that he talks about in this book. In contrast to the caged bird metaphor, the idea that I'm proposing here is that since a normal adult human brain is a representationally universal machine, and since humans are social beings, an adult brain is the locus not only of one strange loop constituting the identity of the primary person associated with that brain, but of many strange loop patterns that are coarse-grained copies of the primary strange loops housed in other brains. So that's exactly what I was talking about. Thus, brain 1 contains strange loops 1, 2, and 3, and so forth, each with its own level of detail. But since this notion is true of any brain, not just of my brain, it entails the following flip side. Every normal adult brain soul is housed in many brains and varying degrees of fidelity, and therefore every human consciousness or I lives at once in a collection of different brains to different extents. There is, of course, a principal domicile or main brain for each particular I, which means that there remains a good deal of truth to simple commonsensical statements like my soul is housed by my brain. And yet, close to true though it is, the statement misses something crucial, which is the idea, perhaps strange sounding at first, that my soul lives to lesser extents in brains that are not mine. And that's the idea of the loop, that's the idea of the geometrical pattern, how we share information, how this information becomes imbued in other brains and knowledge, and that's how we evolved. And of course we see this feeling, we feeling that we are elsewhere. As Hofstadter continues, all this talk of one person inhabiting several bodies at the same time might seem wildly at odds with common sense, which unambiguously tells that we are always in just one place, not two or more. But let's examine this common sense axiom a bit. So he goes on. I'm not going to read the whole. You can go and read the whole thing, but the whole book. But this is the idea that I live somewhere else, and that somewhere else is inside me, and that's how we share this information, which Carl Jung has called the brains, has called the archetypes, right? Archetypes that are coming from the collective unconscious, from where we share this information. If you look at early Christianity as so-called Byzantine Empire, the early Roman Empire, or the Eastern Roman Empire, you can see they were obsessed by these patterns, and you can find these patterns everywhere in their culture, and these patterns have gone from you can find again in Islamic culture, because Islamic culture has been influenced by Byzantine, by European architecture, and you can also find it in other sorts of architecture, sacred geometry. This is everywhere. It's because at the beginning, at the beginning of humankind, art, religion, culture were all one. And again, the Byzantines knew this, that our art is our connection with the sacred. Art is not just design has removed art from what it originally was. As I said before, art, culture, religion had one source, and that is why human beings value art so much as they would value religion or culture. Whereas design has more of a practical function of the object, and it's a more of a modern approach. And through my work, I wanted to bring us back to this idea of art being sacred, of patterns. And I mentioned Islamic culture before, and you can see the beauty of the patterns everywhere, and these patterns are the same patterns that, as I mentioned before, that animals, plants, insects use in the creation of their homes. As the spider web is creating its web, it also has the same kind of geometrical patterns, and come from early on, from creation early on. And we find it in all this. We find it everywhere. So more and more modern times, where we get to mathematics, we're talking about fractals and equations and math, and this is the creator of the Mandelbrot. Okay, let's try to get it over here in focus. So he talks about these patterns, but from a more mathematical approach. And he talks about the fractal geometry of nature by Benoit Mandelbrot. The fractal geometry of nature, right over here. Just trying to get it in focus. Come on, buddy. So yeah, very also very interesting book, Mandelbrot, and also talks about but from a more scientific approach, rather than psychological, as Jung described it, or religious, or cultural, or whatnot, as I described it. And here Mandelbrot talks about the fractal geometry of nature. Clouds are not spheres, mountains are not cones, and lighting does not travel in a straight line. The complexity of nature's shapes different in kind, not merely degree, from all the shapes of ordinary geometry. To describe such shapes, Benoit Mandelbrot conceived and developed a new geometry, the geometry of the fractal shapes. His work is significant to the fields whose diversity is suggested by the following reviews of fractal forms, chance, and dimension. So fractals are, again, they're infinite. That's what the beauty of reality, of nature, and of our entire reality is. It's a very, very interesting and mysterious realm, which I'm want to explore through my work, and that's why I've been making this patterns. That's why I've been interested in such exploration, and I will continue to do so, and in hopes of revealing more about our humanness and our human nature, and our the beginning of our in our current position as human beings on this planet. So thank you very much for watching this, and I hope this has been clear, and thank you very much for supporting me, and I will continue to post more work, and you can subscribe to my channel if you'd like, or you can follow me, Razvan Anton, RAZVAN ANTON. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and please give me a follow, and thank you very much for listening to this and watching me, and have a great day. Bye bye.